What's up, CW? How we doing?
How are you, sir?
Hi.
Doing very
Who's
well.
who's this guy with all this hair that I'm jealous of? I don't like him already.
No way. My name's Thomas Birkeland. I'm a freshman at Bates.
Nice to meet you, Thomas. What's your favorite color? You got any stupid human tricks?
My favorite color? It might have to
Yeah.
be red because I'm a Liverpool fan.
Ooh.
All right.
Oh, are you
Now
a
you're
Liverpool fan
talking.
too? Okay, that's good. It's a
I think
good
if you,
time to be a Liverpool fan.
I think if you
Absolutely.
trim that hair down, go beard, you might look for a little cloppy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Well, it's nice to meet you, Thomas, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing with Bates, and we are at your service.
Oh,
One little thing is we haven't had a chance to sign the waiver yet, but my guess is as long as we get that to you before you publish that, we're all straight. Is that
yeah.
okay?
No, no worries about the waiver at all. It's basically just
Awesome.
like, yeah, it's just one line you need to sign. It's not bad at all.
Sweet,
Okay.
Thomas. Well, you're in charge, man. Take us away. What can we help you with?
Yeah, all right. First, I'd like to really thank you guys for being here and taking your time to do this. And so I'm just going to
Absolutely.
ask you, so like the basis here is I'm creating an oral history for the Lewiston
Yep.
Public Library. And so it's it's going into like an archive with a whole bunch of other oral histories about local community organizations and the impact of COVID that has had on those organizations. So I
Great.
guess just the first question that I have with you guys is not really COVID related, but what caused you guys to choose Lewiston, Maine, as like your place to like set up a soccer camp? Because I looked at your LinkedIn and I saw that you've been working like all over the country, everywhere from like Duke to U Miami. So what caused you to choose Lewiston?
Great question. Thank you. I taught at Waterville High School back in about 2001. So I absolutely love Maine. My brother went to Bowdoin. We spent, my family would spend some time up in Maine in the summertime when I was growing up a little bit. So I love Maine. I love the outdoors. When I was at Waterville High School, I was the civil rights advisor at Waterville High School back in, I think, 2001. And so that was the first year there was a big Somali immigrant population that was just arriving. And so at that point, there was a big rally in Lewiston kind of against the immigrants coming. And so a bunch of high schools in kind of central and southern Maine got together. And so we actually drove our civil rights team down to Lewiston to kind of do a counter rally to actually welcome the new Americans and new Mainers. So I was here when the immigrant population started getting here. And then I went out and I was a high school teacher down in New York City. And then I coached college soccer in a lot of different places, worked with some amazing people. But then it just became apparent. A friend of mine passed away of ALS, Chris Rosati, and that's who the program's named after. And when he passed away, as he was transitioning to heaven, he created a couple nonprofits, and it was basically very simple to make the world a better place. So when he passed away, it really smashed me up a lot, just emotionally. There are more important things to do than just have a job coaching soccer. And so that really kind of was the impetus behind thinking about a way of serving communities in need through soccer instead of just being a soccer coach, getting a salary, whatever. So Lewiston was a place that was in need, and I had already been there, so I had experience there. And so I just started reaching out to people talking about it. And basically, I just dropped everything. I stepped away from my NCAA head coaching job in North Carolina, and I just came up to Maine and started getting into the school system because I knew that would give us a real good foothold and context and kind of social capital in the community. And then we went for about 2 years, and then Noah joined us about probably 6 months ago, and I'd love to hear why he thought that Lewiston was a really wonderful place to invest in his future and the community's future.
Yeah, thanks, CW. For me, it's also about a connection to Maine and more specifically a connection to Lewiston, as of course I am a Bates grad. My time living in Lewiston as a Bates student had a ginormous impact on me for a variety of reasons. And as a Bates student, that's kind of what really got me wanting to be a teacher, or at least work with young people. And so I graduated about 4 years ago, and really the only jobs I've ever had to this point are teaching jobs. But you know, my passion is sport and soccer specifically, and like CW, I love Maine because I love to be outside. And so, you know, after 4 years of teaching, I really realized that I wanted to give coaching a try. And, you know, my first teaching jobs were through Teach for America. And that really kind of got me thinking about social justice and a role that I could play and, you know, what I had to give to, you know, my communities. And, you know, I just saw the perfect fit, or I saw Lewiston as being the perfect fit because of the love for soccer that, you know, so many kids in Lewiston have. But then also, of course, that missing piece of a lot of kids going to college from, you know, a lot of these refugee or new immigrant families. And so, you know, my dream really for the last 2 or 3 years has been to come to Lewiston and work for a program like this. I spent the last 2 years in Colombia in South America, and I was lucky enough to be a part of an incredible kind of like leadership model grassroots soccer athletics program outside of Bogota, which really showed me that a program like ours, or a program like the one that I was a part of in Colombia, is absolutely realistic and can do incredible things in the right situation, in the right environment. And just got really, really lucky when it turned out that CW had already gotten the process started and already done this incredible work, you know, making meaningful connections in the community. And, you know, it's, you know, just really worked out. And I've been back in the US now for a little while, and it's been incredible to be back in Lewiston and, you know, doing what I can to be a part of this program. But yeah, I couldn't be more excited about it.
Speaking of your organization, what is your organization's main goal in Lewiston?
Great question, Thomas. Can I just follow up on the first question?
Yeah.
Those are the reasons why we came to Lewiston, or kind of back to Lewiston.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing about looking at this screen right now is it's Noah and I, but what you're not seeing is there's a huge team, there's a huge community behind us. It really does take a village. We've got a board of directors, we've got community leaders from the Somali community, we've got community leaders from the kind of Anglo-Saxon community, the Franco-American community. So, you know, we couldn't have done one single thing without the incredible support and the incredible collaboration. I mean, we're a collaboration with Bates College, Lewiston Public Schools, Lewiston Rec Department, Maine Community Immigration. So, sorry, I just wanted to make absolutely sure that we are just the tip of the iceberg. We're just a tiny, tiny little piece of this entire village that's behind this program.
Okay.
So, Thomas, what was your question again? I'm sorry.
My question was, what is the goal of your organization?
Fantastic question. The goal of the organization, kind of following up on the values that Noah was talking about, is basically 4 things. One is improve discipline rates right now, because right now, you know, a lot of kids are disciplined way out of control, and it makes everybody look bad. It makes the superintendent's office look bad. It makes the teachers look bad. It makes the families look bad. It makes the community look bad. So probably the central piece of this entire program is teaching the social emotional coping skills, the communication skills, to be able to work in a power dynamic like school, like talking to a policeman, like being in a family, like being in your community. The idea is, what do you do when you don't get what you want? How do you act when, you know, the odds are against you? You know, how do you stand up to challenges, things like that? So the 4 things. One is better behavior and better relationships with teachers right now, day one. And we think we're doing an incredible job on that, you know, creating an environment where young people can experiment with losing. You know, they can experiment with, you know, compromising as to who touched the ball before it went out of bounds. So those are really rich things. So the four main things that we're trying to hit on are, number 1, better behavior in school. So kids don't get suspended, they don't get disciplined, and they have more trust and faith in the system, and we start generating those trusting relationships.
Okay.
The second one, which is very closely related, is academic support. We're always talking about, you know, not necessarily college after high school all the time, but maybe a 2-year school, maybe a 4-year school. But the important thing is do really well in high school, do as best you possibly can, and then go out into the real world. And maybe that's career readiness right out of high school, and that's fantastic as well. But basically, it's better behavior in school to address the discipline, better academics in school, which will increase, you know, their sort of life chances and success in every successive year in education. The third one is basically just make them better soccer players. That's by far the easiest part. Soccer is so easy as long as the other things are in place. And the fourth one, like I said, is better outcomes after high school, whether that's career path, whether that's some sort of mentoring, whether or not that's some job training, whether it's a 2-year school, or if it is a 4-year school as well. You want to add on to any of that, Noah?
I guess my follow-up is, has COVID changed that goal in any way?
Good question. I don't think COVID has changed our goals. COVID has created a situation logistically because we are using Lewiston public school facilities. Like the last 2 years, we've been using an indoor gym in downtown Lewiston. Obviously with the full support of the superintendent's office in Lewiston. And basically the deal is right now, because of COVID, following all the MPA and all the CDC guidelines, Coach Fuller is the athletic director at Lewiston High School, and he's been doing a fantastic job. We have so much appreciation and so much thanks to him for communicating through COVID and willingness to be problem solving, just trying to serve all the student athletes in Lewiston. Coach Fuller's absolutely incredible with that. So basically what's happened is, since we're not officially a school sport, we are not the Lewiston soccer team. We are not allowed to be indoors, and that's kind of one of the keys to our program is having an indoor facility. And so unfortunately, but completely understandably, and we support their decision 100%, the school system has decided that we cannot be indoors because of best practices according to MPA and CDC, obviously, that we're following perfectly well. Absolutely no wavering on any of the COVID protocols. So basically, we have now gotten an outdoor space next to one of the elementary schools, which is fantastic. But it is outdoors, so it's not perfect, and the days are getting shorter, and the weather is starting to get a little cooler. So it's a definite challenge, and we have a lot of different ways we're addressing that challenge to brainstorm and think outside the box, because at the end of the day, we don't want the show to stop. We want the show to go on, because we know the powerful impact that our program has on young people in the schools, and self-efficacy and feeling good about themselves and feeling like they're valuable. So we don't want to stop. If we have to, we have to, but we'll never stop. We'll always pivot and learn.
Speaking of impacts, how has COVID impacted the population that you work with?
The population that we work with is mostly downtown Lewiston, so socioeconomically, not middle class for sure. So they are challenged economically, and I just think COVID, it seems to me that kind of the awareness that I have of COVID is that it really hits on lower income families worse, because education levels usually have an impact on access to healthcare. A lot of people in downtown Lewiston do not have health insurance, so COVID's really hit them hard. And the school thing is really, because a lot of the downtown community, I think Lewiston downtown has, by far the highest population density in the state of Maine, and that obviously, COVID's a communicable disease through the air. So high population density is a definite red flag and a threat and a danger. But the other huge thing is obviously the schools, right? So schools right now in Lewiston are on a 2 days in, either Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday, and then 3 days off. Well, remote learning 3 days a week and 2 days in service in the schools. And so that's just created a tremendous burden on the parents, because the kids aren't going to school. So, and it's basically the same challenges I think that most families are facing in the United States, except it's a little bit more crucial. There's less kind of fallback cash, to be able to finance, maybe going, finding different living conditions with less population density, whatever. But I just think our population is especially vulnerable to the same disease that's the worst public health disaster in the last 100 years in this country. So yeah. What do you think, Noah? Anything?
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. Yep. The only thing I would add would be to Thomas, your question of has COVID shifted our priorities? And so, if anything, I would say no. It's kind of, COVID has kind of reaffirmed what it is that we're doing in terms of preparing kids for difficult situations and how to respond appropriately, because of course, like, you know, when you're at soccer practice and A, you have to wear a mask, B, you can't really play soccer, right, the normal way because you can't get close to someone. Like, can you think of like anything that's more kind of, I don't know, just like tantalizing for a young kid to be able to adhere to, right? It's like having this beautiful thing that they love being dangled in front of them, and they have to show such incredible restraint and responsibility and self-awareness. And you know, that's all the social emotional things that CW was talking about. So if anything, you know, I think COVID has really showed us how incredible the kids are, and you know, but really just also how important this work is to develop these social emotional skills in a space that's totally safe, and you know, where mistakes are encouraged, so that when they go to school, you know, they can be the leaders when it comes to not just COVID protocols, but also, you know, when they perceive the teacher as being unfair, when they are upset with classmates. So I mean, I think it's all connected, and it's pretty interesting stuff.
Can I follow on that just a little bit? Thank you so much, Noah. Such good points. Number one is it's really put a premium on flexibility and adaptation, which are really important social skills. You know, you walk into a classroom, new teacher, substitute teacher, you got to be flexible, you got to be adaptive, you got to be patient. The second thing is exactly like Noah said, protocols have been really, really interesting. We feel like we've done a really good job of, you know, socially distancing with cones, check-ins, sign-ins, building these routines, building these patterns, you know, telling the kids why we're doing these things. Because to a kid, you know, coming to soccer practice, these are steps along in the process that are very frustrating. You know, I just want to play soccer, man, get out of my way. But it's like we have to do the protocol, and we have to make sure that we're following all the, you know, the protocols to sure that we're 100% safe. And that's also affected how we coach soccer and how we play soccer. We can't just play 4v4 anymore. We have to be very thoughtful. And it's created a situation where we have to be incredibly creative as coaches, because we've never seen anything like this before. So we have to create situations where we're trying to bring out the same themes, but with the restrictions of social distancing and limited touching and all that sort of thing. And then the last thing I would really follow up on what Noah said, which is we're not looking at this program as kind of like, you know, treading water or babysitting or anything like that. Our plan is that our young people, like our captain, our young assistant coaches, are actually doing the COVID questionnaires to the younger players coming in. And obviously we're supervising that to make sure it's 100% good, and they're sanitizing and they're bringing their own water bottles. But it's absolutely beautiful, because the idea is, okay, we work with a lot of the kids that get in a lot of trouble in school almost every day. So they're kind of in that sort of power dynamic where they're used to kind of being in trouble and kind of being, you know, feel like they're devalued for whatever reason. But we're trying to, you know, we see this as a positive, because now if those students come to us and know exactly the pattern and they're patient and they get, you know, the symptoms and the 14 days hot spots and the relatives at home, all those things. So now when our students go to school, instead of being over here with the bad kids getting in trouble, the idea is, okay, now our kids know to wear masks, you know, and they're cool with it, and they can show other kids how to wear masks. They can show other kids that it's okay to do social distancing. So instead of being over here with the bad kids, now they have all this understanding, this experience working with COVID in a positive way, that they can actually support the teachers and totally change the dynamic between the teachers and these bad kids. So that's one thing that we're really proud of, and we think is a wonderful opportunity to just build that trust and that culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to highlight, if just in case this is a recording, that CW, when he said bad kids, was using quotation marks with his.
Yeah, not like it's recorded, like I think the footage is recorded as well.
Okay, perfect.
Right, because a lot of the students that come to us, you know, they do get into situations in the school where there's discipline associated. That doesn't make them a bad kid. That's just kind of, you know, they're great kids, because in the environment that we set up, they come in and they do wonderful. School's just a really hard way to. School's a tough way to interact with kids, because there's so much power, there's so few adults, there's like, it's really challenging for teachers and students.
Yeah, I was actually, it was funny I mentioned this. I was actually writing a paper like 2 hours ago about the like discipline that's happening in Lewiston public schools, an ACLU case that they had in 2017. But
Yep.
So what do you guys do on a day-to-day basis to achieve your goals?
Big question. So first of all, we are not experts. We've never done this before. You know, I'm an experienced soccer coach. I'm an experienced teacher. I've never started a nonprofit before, so that was incredibly scary. It's still crazy. You know, on a daily basis, it feels like you're a fisherman with like 30 lines out, or a fisherwoman with 30 lines out, and you've never been trained how to fish. You know, so it's like there's so much going on. You got to be a jack of all trades. There's like 30 different skill sets. It's scary, but it's fun. The number one thing is your brain's firing all the time in different ways, and we're working with the most amazing people you could possibly imagine. I mean, on a daily basis, our kind of workflow is, in the morning, Noah and I both do things that kind of financially support our ability to keep breathing and eating and paying for roofs over our heads and stuff. Because right now we're sacrificing a lot for the good of the community, because we know that the most important thing is that these students need productive, free after-school programming, because all the research we look at now says that the main reason between some kids making it in high school and school and some kids not is basically the access to quality after-school programming in elementary school. So that's exactly where we're going off of. Sorry. Do you want to hop in on that, Noah, or do you want to follow up, Thomas? I mean, basically, in the morning, we do things. Noah has a little bit of a side job. I have a little bit of a side job. Then we usually communicate around noon. We get our practice plan ready for the afternoon. And then I, usually a couple hours of just, it could be anything, emails, networking, the 501c3s come through. They're all these different areas, the board of directors communicating, collaborating, all the decisions we make. So, and then we go to practice each afternoon and then come home, same thing. So it's like the Peace Corps, the best job you'll ever love. We're not making any money right now, but that's totally understandable, because the model is to create an amazing program that's sustainable and then work on the finance to make it work long term. And that's right what we're in the middle of right now. And we couldn't be happier.
Okay. No, you got anything to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think just the day-to-day varies in a lot of ways, but is also consistent in other ways, right? In the sense that, we're always kind of building towards an afternoon session. But, other than that, our day could be anything depending on, what needs to get done, whether it's social media, whether it's reaching out to a potential partner in the community or elsewhere that maybe is looking to provide financial support, whether it's talking to a lawyer about the 501c3 like CW alluded to. But really, I think, the one consistent is the session, and preparing for the session to make sure it's always gonna run smoothly, and discussing that every day, but then also, whatever else needs to be done based on, just where we're at depending on the week.
Okay. So that's all I have question-wise, and we're coming up on time here. But I would actually